Hi, this video is just a short review. For some of you, this may be a review. For some of you, this may be a first exposure. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate some of the manual geometric construction techniques that were historically used in CAD drawings, or the creation of drawings, not CAD drawings, but in the creation of drawings before computer-aided drafting. So I have here a couple of tools of the trade. I have a compass, and compasses are useful for a couple of different things. Most frequently they are used for making circles and arcs, and that's what we're going to use them for today. And I have here a protractor. Now you may be familiar with protractors for measuring angles, but we're actually just going to use this protractor as a straight edge. So the other thing that I will need is a pencil or a pen. Now, drafting pencils typically are a little different than this one. They typically have got a more precise lead holder, but this will do for our needs today. These demonstrations are kind of demonstrated, or these techniques are kind of demonstrated starting on page 4 of chapter 2 in your textbook. But if you've never done them before, it can be helpful to actually see somebody do it. So let's start with the most basic, and this is the technique that we will use to bisect a line. Now this will work for a line or an arc, either one, and I'll demonstrate both. But the first thing we want to do, I've just drawn a line on this piece of paper, and the first thing we want to do is we want to take our compass and we want to set it to some separation that's more than half of the distance of the line. And you can see that we're pretty close here, so I'm going to make my compass just a little bit bigger. So I'm just spreading my compass arms further apart. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our sharp point. So the compass has got two ends. It's got a sharp edge, and this one's very sharp, and a graphite end or a drawing head. Some compasses will hold pens. This one clamps the graphite into the compass itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this end, and then we're going to make an arc through our line. And you might not be able to see this because it's a pretty light mark, but I just drew a circle. So the whole point here is that these can be erased. These are construction marks. And in manual drafting, they would be made lightly and would be erased before the final print was produced. So now I'm going to make two tick marks. What I did was I changed my compass to the other end, so I moved my pointy end to the other end of my line, and I placed it very precisely on the end of the line. And now I'm going to make a tick mark across my original arc. So I'm going to darken these just so you can see them. So this first piece that I'm drawing is my original arc, and this is the partial arc that I drew across it. Down here is the original arc, and this is the partial arc that I drew across it. And the reason we do that is because now we take our straight edge, and if we connect those two with a line, and again this would normally be done with a pencil and done lightly, but in the interest of you being able to see, I'm going to do it with this black pen, and I'm going to draw fairly darkly. So this line that I just drew has cut the original line neatly in half. So this side is equal to this side, and even more precisely, the angle between my bisecting angle and my original line, or the angle between my bisecting line and my original line, is an exact 90-degree angle. So we not only bisect the line, we actually construct a perpendicular bisector to that line. Okay, this same technique will work with an arc. So I've got here just an arc that I drew, and again I want to make sure that my compass is set to at least half of the distance of my arc, and I'm not, so I'm going to make my compass, I'm going to spread my compass arms out to be a little bit longer. But other than that, I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did a minute ago with my lines. I'm going to put my pointy end very precisely on the end of my arc, and I am going to draw an arc through the arc I'm trying to bisect. And again, this is very light because it's meant to be erased. And I'm going to move my pointy end to the other side, and I'm going to draw two partial arcs that cross my original arc. And so again, I've created, so here's my original arc that I drew. I'm just drawing two pieces of it. And here's my crossing part right there and right there. And sorry, I missed a little bit on this one. That's my original arc. And I'm going to connect the two together. Those two cross points I'm going to connect with my straight edge. And I can mark then that point right there on that line represents the center of that arc. This half is exactly the same length as that half. And again, if I were to construct a line tangent to this, this line would be perpendicular to that arc. Okay, bisecting an angle is similar, but a little bit more complicated. The first thing we have to do, actually, is mark an arc through my angle. So I'm just making my arc a little bit smaller, or setting my compass a little bit smaller. And now I'm going to go ahead and place my pointy end at the apex of my angle. And I'm going to mark an arc through my angle. Now what I do is I actually use my compass to measure the distance from this side of my angle where it crosses my arc. So you might not be able to see that arc, so I'm going to darken it up right here. That's my arc. Make it a little darker so you can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a compass. I'm going to measure the distance between this point and that point. Oh, sorry, I don't have to do that till the next step. Once I have that, I'm going to do exactly. So once I have this arc, what I need to do now is just bisect the arc that I drew between these 2 points. So this setting on my compass will work just fine for that. Doesn't really matter. Put my pointy end where my arc crosses a leg of my angle and mark a partial arc. Move my pointy end to the other intersection and draw an arc. And you can see maybe in a minute that I have now created a cross point. Now this cross point lines up with two places. The center, if I draw a line from this apex of my original angle through that cross point, I will have bisected that arc that I drew and therefore will bisect my angle. So if I now draw this new angle point, this guy right here, this new angle leg, I will have bisected that angle, and this angle is exactly equal to the other half of the angle. Okay, I'm not necessarily going to require you to do these. They're fun to practice if you're interested, but understanding how we did this before AutoCAD can help us in understanding what AutoCAD is doing when we get to that point. Okay, so now, sometimes we need to transfer an angle. So I've got this angle drawn here, and let's say I need this same angle drawn from this other line down here. What we do is we take our compass and we start with the angle that we need to transfer, and we draw an arc. Now, I'm going to measure the distance between the two intersection points. I've got an intersection point here and an intersection point there. And I'm going to measure that with a compass. Now this is just a smaller compass. It's convenient because this is a small angle, a small arc that I'm drawing. You can do this with a larger compass as well, but I happen to have this little one. and it is convenient for these small arcs. So what I've done is I've set my compass so that if I put my pointy end on this intersection point, my pencil goes through that other intersection point. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to first create this same radius arc. So this is my original arc. I'm going to create that same radius arc on the line I want to transfer the angle to. And now what I'm going to do is, this is the compass that I measured this distance with. I place this guy on the point where that arc intersects my line, make a mark, and then I can draw from the end of the line that I want to be the apex, which is the same end of the line that I drew my original arc from, through that cross point. And you can see I have to be a little finicky with how I place my straight edge. And manual drafting is quite finicky. It's a very precise art. But now I will have transferred this original angle onto my new line, and those two are equal angles. And we can verify that if I get out my other protractor and we measure. The angle between this line is, about 26 degrees. And if I measure now this angle that I've created over here, it is also about 26 degrees. Okay, so we've transferred an angle. This is actually one of the more useful skills, which is to create a line tangent to a circle through a point. We do this in AutoCAD, and we'll get there. So what we do is we start with a circle and a point, and now what we're going to do is we're going to draft a line that goes through this point and just barely touches that circle. But we're going to draft it more precisely than if we had just done what I was going to do and laid down my straight edge. So what we're going to do is, the first thing we do is we make a line between the center of our circle and this point. And this is a construction line, so it would be erased later, so I'm going to do it in pencil. And now what we're going to do is bisect that line. So we're going to use our bisect a line skill. So place my pointy end at my point that I want to start my tangent line at. Draw in my arc. Now move my pointy end to the center of my circle and draw in my intersecting arc. And now I'm going to draw in my bisecting line. Now I need to reset my compass, and I want to reset my compass so that it is equal to the distance from one end of this line to that center point. So I'm resetting my compass to exactly half the distance between my point and the center of my line, or center of my circle rather, because that's what I've got here. And I'm hoping that by watching these you will begin to understand the value of computer-aided drafting. And so now what we're going to do is we start at the center point here, and we draw a circle, a partial circle, through the center of my circle and through the edge of that circle. And now we have a crossing point where this construction arc crosses my original circle. And if I connect my dot that I wanted, my point that I cared about, And that crossing point and you can see I missed a little bit, but we'll pretend. You can see that this line, had I been a little bit more precise in my placement, I am not a drafter by trade. I just understand the techniques and the work involved. Okay. This line just barely touches that circle and is tangent to that circle at that point. So we have constructed a line tangent to a circle. And in a professional CAD office, all of these construction lines, all these pencil marks that I made would be erased. That would be the next step. So all you would have left is the circle and the line. Okay. This is something else we have to do fairly frequently, which is draw a circle through 3 points. So this is on page 2-8 in your text, and this will be the last one I demonstrate. There are more in your textbook, but I'm going to leave those to you. So the first thing we would do is connect 2 of the points, any 2, with construction marks. So these would be pencil that could be erased later. And now what we are going to do is we're going to bisect both of these 2 lines that I just drew. So we'll take our compass and bisect these 2 lines. And I like to bisect them one at a time. And we have to be very careful with this one, or it doesn't work right. Okay, now we'll do that same operation on the other line. So we'll bisect this line. Draw the bisector. Now this point right here is the center of the circle that will go through all 3 of those points, if I've been precise enough. So the next step is to adjust my compass to that radius. Okay, and now we draw that circle. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. We see if I was precise enough, and it looks not too bad. I missed a little bit, and you probably can't see it. Let me sketch it in darker. So this circle that I'm drawing is pretty close to going through all 3 of those points. I'm hoping that by demonstrating this, you've developed an understanding, or an appreciation rather, of the attention to detail required of manual drafters. And these are all skills that we will utilize in our computer-aided drafting. The advantage of computer-aided drafting is the computer takes care of some of this precision. So let's get on with, I'll now return us to the Chapter 2 lecture that you probably have already watched.